This is the story of a prophecy no wall could stop, and the fate one king ran straight into: the Oracle of Argos. In the torchlit halls of Argos, a proud king kneels before an oracle and hears the shape of his own death. The prophecy is short and merciless, that his daughter's future son will one day rise and kill him. He had gone to the oracle hoping for a promise of many sons, and instead he walked away carrying a curse. King Acrisius has no grandson yet, and so he decides coldly that no grandson will ever be allowed to live. His daughter Danae is young and radiant and entirely innocent of the doom now hanging invisibly over her head. The king cannot bring himself to kill his own child, but he is certain he can cage her forever. Deep beneath the palace, his men dig a chamber of solid bronze, sealed away from the open sky. They lower Danae down into it, a living tomb with a single narrow slit to let in air. No man may enter, no suitor may find her, and no child may ever quicken inside that buried room. Acrisius believes he has strangled his fate in its cradle, and for the first time in years, he sleeps easy. Yet a prophecy is not a wall that a man can build, and fate does not kneel to the will of frightened kings. But the gods watch everything from Olympus, and one god in particular has already noticed the girl in the dark. Zeus, the thundering king of the heavens, looks down upon the daughter of Argos, sealed inside her bronze cell. No wall of metal and no lock of iron was ever forged that could keep a determined god outside. One night, the ceiling of her prison begins to glow with a warm and impossible golden light. The light falls like rain, a shower of molten gold pouring silently down through the narrow slit above. Danae reaches up in wonder as the gold gathers and pools and slowly takes a living shape around her. In that sealed and secret room, far from every human eye, a god quietly takes a mortal bride. Months later, a sound rises from the bronze chamber that the fearful king never once wanted to hear. The thin cry of a newborn boy echoes up through the cold stone, and Acrisius turns to ice, the chest, and the sea. The king descends into the prison and finds his daughter cradling a small sleeping infant against her chest. The child is named Perseus, and his grandfather looks down at him and sees nothing but his own waiting grave. To kill the boy outright would stain the king's own hands with the forbidden blood of his kin. The gods punish such crimes without mercy, and Acrisius is far too frightened of them for that. So he invents something crueler instead, a death he can arrange yet still pretend he never truly caused. He tells himself that if the wind and water take them, then the blame belongs to the sea and never to him. His carpenters build a great wooden chest, sealed tight against the water, just large enough to hold two. At the first gray light of dawn, they carry Danae and her baby to the shore and force them inside. The heavy lid comes down, the darkness swallows them whole, and the sealed chest is shoved into the surf. Acrisius watches the box shrink into the waves and tells himself the cold sea will finish what he could not. Inside the dark, Danae holds her son against the pitching walls and refuses to let the ocean take him. The chest rides mountains of black water, thrown and spun for days across an empty and indifferent sea. She sings to the frightened baby through the storm, promising him a shore that she cannot see or prove. And far beyond the gray horizon, an old fisherman's net is about to catch far more than fish: the island of Seriphos. The island of Seriphos rises small and rocky from the water, where a gentle fisherman named Dictys works the shallows. His net snags on something impossibly heavy, and he drags a battered wooden chest up onto the wet sand. He pries the swollen lid open and finds a starving woman and a wide-eyed child, somehow still breathing. Dictys owns no wealth and no throne, only a kind and steady heart, and he takes them both home. In his humble seaside house, Perseus grows from infant to boy to a strong, fearless, and clever young man. Perseus learns the fisherman's trade and the fisherman's kindness, never once dreaming of the strange blood in his veins. For many quiet years, the cruelty of the sea is forgotten, and the little family lives safe and unremarkable. But Dictys has a brother, and that brother wears the heavy golden crown of the whole island. King Polydectes is a man who simply takes whatever he wants, and what he wants now is Danae. She refuses him again and again, and standing always between the king and his prize is her grown son. Perseus guards his mother like a stone wall, and the frustrated king begins to hate the young man bitterly. Polydectes knows he can never force Danae to yield, while her fearless son still lives to defend her. So the king abandons force and turns instead to cunning, the oldest and favorite weapon of small, greedy men. He announces a great feast, telling all his nobles he means to court a wealthy princess far across the sea. Custom demands that every guest bring the king a worthy gift, fit to honor a coming royal wedding. The proud nobles all pledge fine horses, and Perseus, who owns nothing at all, stands empty-handed and ashamed. Hot pride flares up inside the young man's chest, and Polydectes watches the flush spread with a hidden smile. Perseus swears aloud before the whole court that he will bring the king any single gift he cares to name. The trap snaps shut, and the king's thin smile widens because he has been waiting all night for these exact words. Polydectes names his impossible price without a moment of hesitation, the freshly severed head of the Gorgon Medusa. The word Gorgon falls over the feast like a shadow, and far across the island, Danae feels a nameless mother's dread. The suicide quest. It is a death sentence dressed up as a simple dare, and every man in the crowded hall knows it. Medusa is a monster whose single glance turns warm, living flesh into cold gray stone in a heartbeat. No warrior has ever hunted her and lived to speak of it, and the king expects only silence in return. But Perseus has given his sworn word before the entire court, and a word once given can never be unsaid. He walks out of Seriphos completely alone, with no map, no army, and no idea where the monster even hides. He walks until the very land runs out beneath him, and there, at the edge of despair, the gods find him. A tall woman appears in armor that shines like the noon sun, gray-eyed and utterly calm and terrible. Athena, the goddess of wisdom and war, has chosen this desperate mortal boy for reasons entirely her own. She has watched this boy grow up from the drowning chest, and she will not let her chosen hero die unarmed. Beside her stands Hermes, the swift divine messenger, his winged sandals fluttering, a knowing grin across his face. The gods tell Perseus a secret, that Medusa can indeed be killed because she alone among her sisters is mortal. But to reach her, he will need weapons that no mortal owns and a hidden path that no mortal knows. First, he must track down the Graeae, 3 ancient sisters who have been gray since the very day of their birth. They share one single eye and one single tooth between them, passing each from withered hand to withered hand. Only these 3 gray sisters know the secret road to the nymphs who guard the tools that Perseus needs. Hermes hands him a curved sword of unbreakable adamant, and Athena gives him a bronze shield polished to a mirror. Then the 2 gods point the young man toward a cold gray shore at the very far end of the world. Perseus finds the 3 sisters huddled together in the gloom, blind and toothless and endlessly, bitterly quarreling. He watches from the deep shadows as they pass the single precious eye between their groping, uncertain fingers. In the half-second the eye hangs in the empty air, belonging to no one at all. He finally strikes. His hand darts out and snatches the eye clean away, and suddenly all three gray sisters are completely blind. They shriek and grope and beg, but Perseus holds their only sight closed tight inside his steady fist. He makes his terms perfectly plain that the eye returns to them only when they reveal where the nymphs dwell. The sisters resist, then wail, then break, and at last they surrender the secret road he came to find. For all their age and menace, the three gray sisters are no match for a desperate boy backed by two gods. Perseus tosses the eye back into their reaching hands and rises toward the hidden north on the wind. The gifts of the nymphs. At the frozen northern edge of the world, he finds the nymphs, keepers of treasures far older than kings. They give him a pair of winged sandals that can lift a grown man up into the sky like a bird. They give him a cap that swallows its wearer whole, erasing him completely from every searching eye. And they give him a plain leather satchel, the one vessel in the world that can safely hold Medusa's head. Perseus straps on the sandals, and for the first time in his entire life, his own 2 feet leave the ground. The boy who was born inside a wooden chest rises into the open air as the whole world drops away below. Every man who ever mocked him, and every wave that ever tossed him falls away beneath his soaring, flying feet. He flies over seas and endless deserts, following the gods' careful directions toward a place where nothing lives. At last he reaches the lair of the Gorgons, and the ground itself silently tells him he has arrived. Statues crowd the gray wasteland, men and beasts frozen mid-step, their mouths flung open in silent stone screams. These are the ones who came hunting before him, and not one of them ever even saw what killed them. Perseus lands among the petrified dead and understands that a single careless glance will make him one of them. He remembers Athena's warning well, that to look upon Medusa directly is to die where you stand. So he lifts the mirrored shield high and turns his back to the monster, hunting her only by her reflection. The Gorgons sleep. Deep inside the ruined cavern, scattered among the frozen figures, the 3 Gorgon sisters lie fast asleep. 2 of the sisters can never die, but the third one, lying there in the center, is Medusa. In the polished bronze, Perseus watches her, a coiled, sleeping shape crowned with a writhing nest of living serpents. Even in sleep, the snakes twitch and taste the air, and Perseus feels his own frightened heart hammering. He moves in closer, walking carefully backward, every single step guided only by the trembling picture in the shield. One small sound, one clumsy slip, and her eyes will open and his long quest will end in stone. He raises the adamant sword slowly, watching the reflection, lining the bright blade against the sleeping monster's neck. The serpents suddenly stir, sensing the intruder, rising and hissing as if to wake their sleeping mistress. There is no more time left in the world to think, so Perseus swings with every ounce of his strength. Years of prophecy, a whole ocean crossing, a stolen gray eye, all of it comes down to this single swing. The whole wasteland seems to hold its breath, and in a single clean stroke, the terrible deed is done. A blinding burst of light erupts from the fallen monster, and out of it something truly impossible is born. A great white horse with vast wings unfurls into the sky above him. Pegasus, wild and gleaming and finally free. Beside the horse rises a shining, golden giant, and together they leap up into the pale dawn light. Perseus never once looks up, keeping his eyes locked down as he sweeps the deadly head into his waiting satchel. The very instant the bag draws closed, a scream tears across the wasteland that is nothing like a human voice. The 2 immortal sisters wake to find their sister gone, and their raw fury shakes the ancient stones. They rise up on their own dark, leathery wings, snakes writhing, hunting the thief who dared enter their home. Perseus snatches the cap of invisibility from his belt and jams it down hard onto his sweating head. Between one racing heartbeat and the next, the young hero simply ceases to exist before their burning eyes. The Gorgons wheel and shriek high above the wasteland, tearing at the empty air, finding nothing at all to punish. And unseen and unheard, the invisible hero lifts himself into the rushing wind and flies desperately for his life. The chained bride. Perseus flies on for days, the deadly head sealed safely at his side until a strange coastline stops him cold. Far below him, chained to a jagged black rock at the water's edge, stands a lone young woman. Her name is Andromeda, and she has been left here as a living offering for a monster of the deep. Her kingdom somehow angered the sea, and the terrible price the sea demanded was the life of their princess. She stands utterly alone against the rising tide, waiting to die for a crime that was never once her own. Perseus, high above on his winged sandals, sees the chains, sees the terror, and slows to a hover in the empty air. Then the dark water swells and heaves, and a vast and ancient shape rises up, Cetus, the horror of the deep. The sea monster surges straight toward the chained girl, jaws gaping, driving a wall of black water before it. Perseus does not hesitate for even a single moment. He folds his wings and dives straight down out of the sky. He falls like a thrown spear, sword drawn and flashing, aimed directly at the rising bulk of the beast. The monster twists and thrashes in rage, and the whole sea churns foaming white as hero and horror collide. Again and again, Perseus strikes from above, darting on his winged sandals where the snapping jaws cannot ever reach. The great beast slows, then shudders, and at long last sinks back beneath the dark waves it rose from. The heaving water goes suddenly still, and the shadow that has haunted this whole coast for years is finally gone. Perseus lands gently beside the trembling princess and breaks apart the heavy chains that bind her to the cold stone. Beers, in that shining instant, soaked and exhausted and impossibly alive, the two of them wholly belong to each other. He takes Andromeda as his beloved bride, and together they turn at last toward the island of his childhood, the Reckoning. Perseus comes home to Seriphos, only to find that nothing on the island has grown any kinder in his absence. Polydectes never once believed he would return, and the cruel king has spent these long months tormenting Danae. Danae and old kind Dictys are hiding at a sacred altar, clinging to the stone to escape the king's grasping hands. A cold and clear rage burns through Perseus as he learns exactly how much his gentle mother has suffered. He does not shout and he does not threaten, he simply walks toward the palace with the heavy satchel at his side. He walks straight into the crowded hall where Polydectes feasts with the very nobles who once mocked him. The king sneers down at him, certain the boy has crawled back empty-handed with pale excuses and no gift. Perseus tells him calmly that he has brought back exactly what was demanded of him, the Gorgon's severed head. The whole court laughs. The king loudly demands his proof, and Perseus quietly tells them all to look closely. He turns his own face far away, reaches deep into the satchel, and lifts the head high above the roaring room. The laughter dies instantly in their throats as the monster's terrible gaze sweeps across the whole crowded hall. Polydectes freezes upon his throne, and the ugly sneer on his face hardens slowly into cold and lifeless rock. One by one, the mocking nobles turn to gray stone, an entire royal court petrified in the middle of a breath. When Perseus finally lowers the head, the great hall is silent, filled only with statues that were once cruel men. His mother is free at last, and the man who hunted her for so long will never threaten anyone again. Perseus makes the good fisherman Dictys, the new king, a gentle and honest ruler for a long-wounded island. The errant Thro. With his impossible quest finally complete, Perseus gives back the borrowed tools that carried him through the dark. The winged sandals, the cap of shadow, and the leather satchel all return to the gods who kindly lent them. But the head of Medusa itself he gives to Athena, the gray-eyed goddess who guided him from the very start. She fixes the Gorgon's frozen face upon her own shield, where it will guard her in every battle forever. And so, the monster who turned living men to stone becomes the sacred terror upon a goddess's armor. Perseus has won everything a man could dream of: a bride, his mother's freedom, and glory beyond his name. But there is still one thread of this old story hanging loose, spun long ago in the distant halls of Argos. Far away, an aging king still lives each day in fear of a prophecy he has never once been able to forget. Acrisius hears the impossible news that the grandson he drowned is alive, a famous hero, and drawing ever nearer. The old buried fear wakes screaming again, and the king flees his own city to hide where no one will know his face. He still does not understand that no man has ever run quite far enough to escape the debt he truly owes. In the distant city of Larissa, grand athletic games are held, and Perseus arrives to compete among the very best. He does not know his own grandfather sits nearby, and Acrisius does not know the famous champion is his doom. A quiet stranger with a gray head and haunted, restless eyes sits unnoticed among the cheering, watching crowd. Perseus steps forward for the discus, weighing the heavy disc in his hand, feeling the wind, and takes his throw. The discus flies out far and true, and then it catches a sudden gust and veers wide of the marked field. It strikes a single old man sitting in the stands, and without a sound, he crumples and falls. The stunned crowd rushes forward, and Perseus learns the fallen stranger's name, and the whole wide world tilts under him. The old man is Acrisius, the grandfather he has never met, the king who once cast him into the sea. The ancient prophecy has come true down to the very letter, delivered not by hatred, but by pure, blind chance. The oracle spoke true in the far halls of Argos, and every single year since has only carried its words closer. Everything Acrisius ever did to escape his fate was the exact road that carried him straight into its arms. The bronze room, the sealed chest, the cruel and endless sea, all of it only made the prophecy certain. Perseus stands over the still body of a man he never knew and never for one moment wished to harm. He did not seek this death. He did not chase it. He did not even know the old man's grieving face. And that is the terrible heart of the oracle, that the harder a frightened man runs, the surer his fate becomes. The king built a prison, a chest, and a whole ocean to break one single fragile thread of prophecy. Yet every wall that he raised in his fear only bent that thread tighter and tighter around his own gray throat. Fate never once chased Acrisius across the world. It simply waited, patient and quiet, in the very fear that made him run. Fate was always waiting.